Hi loves, my name is Mama Moana and I am a married and proud mama of two. I am about 3 weeks postpartum now, and today I wanted to share my birth story. I don't have as much footage as I wanted to have just because, you tend to be in the moment during during labor and delivery, but I will share the details that I remember to write down, and I have a tiny little bit of footage of me when I got to the hospital, so hopefully that will be helpful for you. So I delivered at Aga Khan, and I remember when I was researching different places to go and get like antenatal care and prenatal care, and also for a place to deliver our baby, I really relied on YouTube to kind of get a sense of what the actual care will be like, because sometimes you can visit a place and they present some options to you, they present the best face to you, but oftentimes what that looks like in reality may differ from what you are presented with. So I used YouTube as a resource because I wanted to see what other women were going through, and I didn't find any resources in terms of like looking at what the rooms look like for Aga Khan in Nairobi. So hopefully this will be helpful in being able to share what my experience was, but feel free to include any questions or comments in the in the comment section, and I will try to fill those in as much as I can. But I'm going to start with what I was doing before labor. So I had a baby on May 9th in the early morning, but labor really started like 2 days prior. On May 7th, which I think is a Sunday, I felt like sporadic contractions, but I kind of passed them off as Braxton Hicks because I've been having Braxton Hicks contractions on and off for, the whole third trimester, and so I knew what it felt like to get a contraction and then for it to go away. And I pretty much felt some sporadic contractions on May 7th, thought it was the same thing. They came and went, and then I went to bed as normal. On May 8th, I was doing everything I could to induce labor. I was desperate. I live in a building that has 13 floors, so I and our firstborn went down to the bottom floor, climbed all the way to the top. I dropped our firstborn off, and I did it again. I was bouncing on a birth ball. I was eating dates. If you didn't know the science behind eating dates, apparently eating dates helps you to dilate faster. I was doing it all, you name it. I was stretching, I was walking, I was just constantly moving and trying to get my hips to open and just kind of trying to signal to baby, hey, I need you out of here, because my due date is May 10th. So on May 8th, I was desperate because I realized I had an appointment set on May 10th for regular check-in with my OB. My OB is wonderful. He was fantastic. Dr. Mukaindo, if you ever are looking for anybody, he's a wonderful doctor. He listens to your concerns. He's very careful, very thorough, and he's wonderful, but I did not want to have to go and see him again because I knew that at this appointment I would be offered the option of a membrane sweep. If you don't know what a membrane sweep is, go ahead and check that out. I'd never had one myself, but I knew I didn't want to. I was like, I just want the real thing. I don't want anything that's even close to labor if it's not going to be labor, even if it's not going to be guaranteed labor. You know what I mean? So on May 8th, I was like, I've got 2 days to get this baby out. Otherwise, I was going to have to get that membrane sweep so that I could induce labor. With my first, I had my first, I think it was 2 days prior to my due date. My water broke sporadically, and then went to the hospital and had a baby. But with this one, I've been feeling a lot of contractions, and there was no other sign. I hadn't lost my mucus plug. There was no other clear signs of labor besides like the occasional Braxton Hicks. So I was really desperate in this case. That's why I started climbing the stairs, eating all the dates, bouncing on the birth ball, and all the things. But May 8th, that is a Monday? Hold on. Yeah, it was a Monday. So on May 8th, I was doing everything. Hip flexor stretches. I was expressing colostrum. That's another thing that was really helpful because not only does it induce labor, but it also helps you to build a stash so that when baby's born, you have colostrum. You can freeze it and just, thaw it and give it to baby if your supply doesn't come in after 3 days. I was grateful that this time that didn't happen for me. I had no problem with building a stash and also with having my supply come in on time. Okay, so the last stretch effort that I did to induce labor was taking castor oil. So as I said with my first, I didn't have to take castor oil. I didn't have to really do any of these things because my water broke 2 days before my due date. And at that time, it was my first baby. I wasn't sure when I was going to go into labor and what that would look like, and so I wasn't really pressed with meeting my due date. But with the second one, I was tired. I was ready to give birth right away. Okay, so recap. On May 7th, which I believe is a Sunday, I had been feeling Braxton Hicks. And I knew I would take it seriously if I took a shower and they continued. But in the evening, I took a shower, they died down, I went to bed. It was all well. Now, before May 7th, I had been pretty serious about doing everything I could to prepare for labor. And so starting at 36 weeks, I took it a number of steps. So I was doing all those things, bouncing on the ball, climbing stairs, eating dates, expressing colostrum. And then in preparation for this one, I've been reading about how perineum stretches are a wonderful way to prepare your body to stretch your birth canal as much as possible, and that reduces the chances of tearing. So I've been doing that on top of all the other things that I do. I mean, I had an extensive nighttime routine, but it just took a lot of effort and a lot of work, but I was committed because I knew that it would be better for me, and I'm glad that I did because it was great, great outcomes. But we'll get to that after I talk through how I got to labor. So on May 7th, sporadic contractions, nothing happened. On May 8th, that was a Monday, I ordered some castor oil, food grade castor oil, and I was hesitant to try it, but I read a lot of different reviews online. I know there's mixed feelings about what castor oil does, and a lot of what it's guaranteed to do is really just act as a diuretic, and so you're more likely to have loose stools after you take castor oil. Thankfully, that was not what happened with me. But I just decided to give it a try. And so in the morning, or no, in the afternoon, I took lunch in the form of a peanut butter sandwich with the castor oil in it. Doesn't taste very good, but it works just fine. I mean, I actually started feeling, contractions at around 1 o'clock. So when my firstborn was taking a nap, I was bouncing on the ball, and I even just tried to kind of rest through. And then I joked with my husband that this was like, this is it, this is the beginning. And so while my firstborn was taking a nap, that's when I decided to film a few videos to add to my channel, which you probably saw already. And I was joking with my husband, but I was actually in denial about them actually being contractions. So I wasn't convicted. I had contractions throughout the evening. They weren't 100% consistent, like they weren't every few minutes or lasting for a minute, but they were real. Like I was feeling them, and I just passed them off as additional practice. Yes. So, the day kind of finished. I, put our firstborn to bed, and then, as I said before, I feel convicted if I know that I can take a shower and they don't go away. So I took a shower and they didn't go away. They actually got worse. And I was still not convinced that I was really in labor. I put on my pajamas and went to bed. I was convinced that I was gonna sleep. So I know you had other plans. So I got in bed, and my husband hadn't yet made it to bed, but before he even got in bed, I got out. So I was like, this is not happening. I could not get comfortable. The contractions were coming. And I decided, just for the fun of it, let me download a contraction app and just see how consistent these are. And so while I was in the living room bouncing on my ball in the dark, having contractions, everybody had gone to sleep, and I was timing them. And I got a call from my mom. My mom is currently in the United States, and she was just kind of talking to me about different things, and she kept asking me, are you okay? Are you okay? And I didn't tell her at all that I was having any contractions. I just kind of talked to her, and I didn't know that she could hear it in my voice. This wasn't a video call, so she wasn't looking at me, but she could hear it in my voice when I was having a contraction. So near the end of our call, I told her I would keep her updated as always if anything should start to happen, and we got off the phone. And then some time passed by. I was still timing contractions, still just kind of managing them on my own in the living room. And when I looked at my phone, the app had a really cool feature where it would tell you the average time between contractions and the average duration of your contraction after you've submitted a few for data. Okay, so as I said before, I had been in the living room managing my contractions. I had just gotten off the phone with my mom, and I just stayed there in the living room, bounced on the ball, just breathing through it, really just trying to relax and trying to convince myself that it was time to go to bed. And so I was tired. I was ready to go to bed, and I was just waiting for the contractions to stop so that I could go to bed. Still in denial. This was at around 9 p.m. that I had gotten a call from my mom. And at about 10 o'clock, I looked at my phone and I think it was 10:30. I hadn't realized that I had been in labor for that long, that I had been getting contractions for that long. B, saw that my contractions were lasting about a minute on average and I'd been gathering consistent data throughout. And then C, saw that my contractions were 3 minutes apart. So at that moment, I realized that it was probably labor because health professionals will tell you to get to the hospital when you're about 5:11, which is to say that your contractions are 5 minutes apart, lasting for about a minute, and this has gone on for about an hour. And so I was more than an hour at a minute and less than 5 minutes. And so that was my light bulb moment. Like, I need to get to the hospital. This is probably real labor. So I went to wake up my husband. He was just as tired as I was, but we did it. We caught an Uber to go to Aga Khan, and it was really easy, thankfully, because it was late at night. There was no traffic, and from where we live in Kilimani, so it's about a 20-minute drive or 30-minute drive, and even worse with traffic. So thankfully it was a fast ride, and our driver could see that I was obviously in labor, but it wasn't that bad. It took us about 20 minutes to get out of the house because we had to grab a few things here and there. If you watched my hospital packing list, then you probably saw that I was already packed, and I just needed a few things like chargers, shower shoes, toiletries, and like tiny things like that. So it didn't take us long. It was a whole bunch of things running through my mind at the time, but largely just shock and disbelief. It's funny how you can prepare for something, but then at the end of it, you're not ready. I don't think you can ever be ready. But nevertheless, we left for the hospital around 11 o'clock, and I think we got there at 11:30. At this time, I was having very clear contractions, and I would remember thinking to myself that I just wanted to be dilated at least to a 6. At least to a 6 because some hospitals won't even admit you until you're in active labor, and active labor is really just showing that you're like at least 5 centimeters dilated. So when we got there, I remember thinking also that it's only 11:30 p.m. That means that if I were to be admitted right away, that would count as the first day towards my 2-day stay. That is a policy at a lot of hospitals here in Kenya, and I didn't want to waste my day. So I remember laughing and talking to my husband saying, find me a place to labor outside for half an hour so that we can get admitted after midnight. And he joked, but I like the crazy part in my laboring mind was really looking for like a bench outside. I found a place. And it was perfect. It was going to be perfect. Thankfully I didn't have to. So we got to Aga Khan, and when you get to Aga Khan, no matter what room you're staying in, you deliver in the maternity ward that's like on their 2nd floor, straight ahead. So you go through the main hospital entrance, go straight, and you go up to the 2nd floor. From there, the first thing they do is they check you in triage to see how far along you are, to check that you are in active labor. And so my husband waited with our bags. I was in the triage bed, and a very kind nurse came and checked, or sorry, not a nurse, it was a doctor, and was surprised. She said, wow, you're 7 centimeters. And in my head, I was celebrating because 7 centimeters was one more beyond my goal. And that also meant that there was just 3 more to go and I would have a baby. And I was also surprised because I had been managing. I could joke and laugh through them. Not through the contractions, but like between them. I could breathe, I could communicate my needs, and I wasn't feeling that fear that I felt during my first. And so after I was checked and found to be 7 centimeters, they made the decision to admit me. So my husband began the process of admittance. Even though we had completely paid for our package, he had to go and like check in and do the formal, I don't know what process it is. He took care of that. So it took him about 15-20 minutes. And by the time he got back, it was about 12:15. So I was admitted at around midnight, and it was perfect timing. So after my husband took care of, or while my husband was taking care of the admittance process, I was moved to the delivery room. And I have a little bit of footage that I will insert here. I am 7 centimeters, and we just got here. I'm in my gown. Pray for me. This is an official room tour. You can see all my contractions being documented here. Baby's heart rate. That's where baby will go in the warmer. I'm assuming over there it's a bunch of tools, a whole bunch of fun stuff. A sink. That's the man of the hour. On this side, let's see. So I've got a bed, real simple and plain. I can feel a contraction coming really quickly. I got tea at midnight, which was nice. Water, baby stuff, my stuff, heart rate machine, and the bathroom. And you can see it's kind of like a basic hospital delivery room. It's got all the different tools and implements that they would probably need. I didn't get like as great a shot of what the room looked like, but it was clean, bright, and comfortable. Nothing too crazy, nothing too fancy, but I mean, I didn't care because I was in labor, and I was like, I knew I just wanted to get 2 more centimeters and then get out of there, 3 more centimeters and get out of there. So my husband came back, and around that time it was like 12:15. From there, I labored for about 2 hours. Then somebody came to check me, a doctor came to check me, and at that point I was found to be 8 centimeters, so I'd only dilated 1 more centimeter. Now, that took a long time for 1 centimeter, and I was tired. So the doctor suggested that they break my water. I was reluctant to get my water broken because with my first, my water broke in the morning, and then I labored directly. Like, I didn't have any other intervention. I just labored and then delivered, and it was rough and hard. And after that point where I hit active labor, like 5 centimeters, I kind of lost my mental state. I entered this alternate mental state, I could say, where I wasn't really thinking about anything. My memory just fails me after 5 centimeters with my firstborn. And with this one, I was excited because I'd made it to 7 centimeters, and I was able to joke and laugh and express my needs in between the contractions. Like, the contractions were strong. I couldn't talk through them. I had to breathe through them. But in between those contractions, I was able to, take a sip of water, joke with my husband, ask questions, and communicate my needs. It is officially, what time? 12:45-ish? 12:43. I'm having another contraction, so we're gonna have to pause. As I was saying, it is 12:44 now, and last checked, I was 7 centimeters, but I'm excited because that only means 3 more left to go. Hopefully 2, hopefully 1. We'll see. My guess is that baby will be born at 2:15, around 7 pounds, 11 ounces. Baba said at 2 o'clock. Any weight is good for him because he's a happy guy. And I'm just thankful that this labor is different from what it was last time, that I can speak between contractions and smile and laugh and joke, because that's different from what it was last time. I have on my dandiest Aga Khan robe saying PZP Ward, Princess Zara, and I'm excited to meet this little baby who's been kicking the monitor every so often, very vigorously, and I'm just praying that it all goes smoothly. And I was, hesitant because I didn't want to lose that presence. I wanted to be present during my labor and during my delivery. But I also realized too that I probably wasn't progressing because my waters were still not allowing my child to fully engage. So I agreed to have my water broken, and that happened at around 2:30 in the morning. Now, the process of having your water broken is not fun. It wasn't fun for me. It was actually quite painful. It was really uncomfortable because they have to be able to reach the bag of water, and what that means is that there's a doctor who has a special glove that has like a hook, little tiny hook, to catch onto the sac and then tear it. But in order for them to reach it, they have to reach up to get it. So it was quite uncomfortable. I did like it. That's how I cried. Yeah. So did that at 2:30, but I don't regret it. Soon after, I could feel my contractions start to ramp up further, and I could feel myself start to lose my mental state during my contractions, and then it would linger to between. And so things started getting faster. My contractions got much more intense. They felt like they lasted longer than a minute. Like I remember thinking that I didn't get a break between them as much as I had done prior to having my waters broken. Let me check my phone here for notes, because I really did lose my mental state in between here, and I didn't want to forget anything. So one of the things that I didn't like about the hospital that I delivered was that they have a policy of continuous monitoring. They need to monitor baby's heart rate to make sure that it's stable during contractions and in between. And what that means is that you have to be strapped up with these devices on your stomach, and you don't have as much range of motion because they have to be placed very specifically to listen to baby's heart rate. So that means that you can't move around as much. And when I was laboring at home, I had the freedom of moving my body in different directions, and I think that that's what helped me to be able to manage my contractions. So when I got to the hospital, I was told to monitor for at least an hour, which meant laying in bed and laboring. And I'm not for it. If you know, many women have talked about how it's just so much more comfortable to be able to move, to position your body in whatever way that you want while you're laboring. It's because it's really intense, and I remember hating to have to lay down in bed while I went through these contractions. So after I had my water broken, I was told that I was able to move with limited motion. Excuse me. Move with limited motion so that I'd be able to keep the monitoring in place, but I'd be able to stand, to sway a little bit. And then they offered me a bench to labor on, but that was pretty much it. And what I'd wanted to do was really just sway, to walk, to move, to bend in different directions. Like I dance. And so I didn't get to do that, unfortunately, because of the continuous monitoring. And that was something that I remember really regretting, and really wishing that I had more power and more say over. Thankfully, baby was fine, and I'm grateful that that the continuous monitoring showed that, and that I didn't have to worry about that. But at the same time, I remember feeling like I wish that I would have been able to move during my labors, and that was something that I expressed continuously, even in my altered mind state and consciousness. So on top of that, so that was at 2:30 that I got my water broken, and then from there, at around 4 o'clock in the morning, I think I lost my consciousness entirely, and that's when I believe that I had hit transition. I was very vocal. Each contraction just felt more intense and felt longer, and then I started vocalizing a need to push. I remember feeling that pressure just getting so much greater, and I didn't know how to say it besides I need to push, and the doctors encouraged me not to push, just to wait, because they checked me again and they said there was still a little bit of cervix left to dilate, and so they made a very quick order to get some medication, which I'm not sure what medication. I'll probably put that in here. But they didn't say the name of the medication that they had ordered, but they knew that it was going to get the cervix out of the way. So while I was waiting, each contraction was so intense, and I remember feeling like this urge to push, and like I couldn't fight it. It wasn't my body pushing, I wasn't pushing, but it was like this baby was coming and I kept saying, the baby's coming, I need to push, and they kept telling me don't push. And I remember feeling like, why are they telling me not to push? I know not to push. I'm not pushing. It's and I couldn't communicate that need, or that clarity of like, I am not actually pushing. My body is expelling this baby. But near the end, before the medication even got there, the doctor checked again and said, oh, you're actually complete. You can push when you need. And so I began pushing, but I wasn't pushing in like a slow and continuous push. I remember I was doing very grunt-like pushes. And I think that was my natural way of making sure that baby was in the right place for me to push, so that I wasn't pushing beyond like my cervix. Because with my first, I tore my cervix. I tore everything, including my cervix, and I didn't want that again. So I remember telling myself over and over again to push slowly, to control it, to not push as forcefully as I had with my first. So I was doing small spurt grunt pushes. And the doctors and nurses made it into the room. They were all prepared, they were waiting for me, and they kept encouraging me to give one long, continuous push. And finally, when I felt ready to give that long, continuous push, I did. And I think it took about 3 or 4 pushes. On the third one, I really felt the crowning. Oh my God, it was so hard. And I remember just being told to breathe normally. And it was like this type of breath, and I was able to do that, thankfully, and I think that really helped a lot, because this time around I didn't tear as much. It was just a minor tear. I got minor stitches, and hallelujah, that was it. But our baby was born, and I was overjoyed. I cried, I prayed, I thanked God Almighty for everything that He had given me, and including this life and this moment, and I just think about it now, and it just makes me very happy, very emotional. My husband was very emotional, very happy as well, and you know, we were grateful to have a healthy baby and for this delivery to not be quite as traumatic. So immediately after, instead of going into surgery like I had with my first, I was able to witness everything that happens with a baby. I held my baby. I saw them being taken over to a nurse's station to be worked on, because they had a little bit of distress in their breathing. So they were given a little bit of oxygen and a little bit of suction. After that, they were fine. And I remember hearing them cry, and I remember I kept asking, are they okay? Are they okay? And they said, yeah, they're just hungry. And I remember I was so relieved that that was the cry of hunger and not the cry of something more serious. And so while I was getting stitched up, baby was getting worked on, as soon as I finished with my stitches and they were able to give me, I remember them giving me the baby, I was transferred to a wheelchair, and then I was wheeled to the bedroom, and from there I got into bed, they handed me the baby, and I was in love, and I was in bliss, and my husband and I were very happy. So I fed my baby, put them down to sleep. Yeah. Put them down to sleep and slept for like an hour before making all the phone calls to everybody to let them know that baby was born and that I was fine. So that's my birth story. I don't have as much footage there. I have a little bit of footage of the hospital room. We opted for the Princess Sarah suite, and we got a small private room, but the Princess Sarah suite was very comfortable. It has its own private room and private bathroom, and the staff was phenomenal. Like, I can't complain. It was a wonderful experience, and I can't see myself giving birth anywhere else now, comparing my first experience with my second. I hope to do another video sometime to talk about the differences between the US systems and the Kenyan system, in terms of antenatal, prenatal care, and also labor, delivery, and postpartum. So look for that content. If you made it to the end of this video, asante sana, you're a real one. Tune in for the next video, and as always, love, love, love.